Fantastic. Okay, I think we'll get to jump straight into it today. You should see slides on your screen now. Welcome along, everyone. So today's session is citing and acknowledging AI in your studies, and we really appreciate you joining. And we're going to get straight into it today. So before we commence, I just want to acknowledge and pay respects to the Kaurna people, who are the traditional custodians of the ancestral lands that I am presenting from today. And just want to acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of the Kaurna people to country. And we respect and value their past, present, and ongoing connection to the land and cultural beliefs. And feel free to share on the chat if you're on different lands today. So I am your presenter today. My name is Brendan Robinson, and I am the coordinator of artificial intelligence and digital literacy projects at the University Library. So just a brief overview of today's session. It will be kind of a brief session, and we're just going to cover broadly citing and acknowledging AI in your studies. So first we'll cover a little bit about AI use at the university broadly, and it's basically to give you that basic foundation of knowledge to help you cite and acknowledge AI appropriately. And next we'll get into citing and acknowledging AI tools in your studies. And basically how they're a little bit different, but they're both equally important. Really all about transparency and attribution. And lastly, we'll cover AI-generated references, why they can appear accurate, but they're often incorrect. So that's the broad overview of today. Let's get stuck in. So before we dive into how to cite and acknowledge AI, it's important to ask, can I even use AI in this assignment? Now, this answer isn't always straightforward. Different courses, subjects, and even individual assignments may have different rules about AI use. On screen is an example of AI guidance that you might see. It's not a given rule, but it's just some categories that we see very often that might potentially be presented to you as acceptable levels of AI use. So the first one there is no AI, and that's where AI use is strictly prohibited, and you must complete the work independently of AI. AI-assisted editing, you can use AI tools to help with grammar, spelling, or formatting, but the ideas and structure must be your own. You might see things like AI-assisted ideas, and that's where you can use AI to brainstorm or explore some concepts, but you must critically evaluate and build on those ideas yourself. And lastly, you might see AI-assisted creation or human evaluation. So you can use AI to help generate content, but you must review, refine, and take responsibility for that final output. Now, these categories are just examples. Your course might use different terms or have different expectations. So before using AI at all, the best practice is to check with your course coordinator. If AI use isn't allowed at all, then the rest of this webinar may not apply to your assignment, but you can still learn something from it. But if AI is permitted in some form, then understanding how to cite and acknowledge it properly becomes essential. So let's just look at some common ways students might use AI tools in their studies. These uses are becoming increasingly familiar, but each one has implications for how and whether you need to cite or acknowledge AI. So we'll just cover these very briefly. If we look at brainstorming ideas, you could maybe potentially use AI to help you explore topics or generate initial concepts. If those ideas shape your work, you may need to acknowledge that support. Same with structuring your thoughts, tools like ChatGPT can help organize your arguments or outline your essay. But if your structure is influenced by AI, I think that's worth noting. Editing your work. So grammar and clarity improvements from AI tools, they may not require a citation, but acknowledging the assistance is often appropriate. Getting diverse feedback. So AI can simulate peer review or offer alternative perspectives. But if that feedback changes your work, it should be acknowledged. Generating different options, whether it's phrasing, examples, approaches, AI can offer choices, but if you use one, you might need to cite it as well. And summarize, synthesize, and analyze. They're deeper uses of AI. And if the tool helps you interpret or combine sources, then citation becomes more important. So we'll show you how to cite and acknowledge these uses properly in later slides. But just for now, just to keep in mind, how you use AI affects how you should reference or acknowledge it. So why does all this matter? It comes down to academic integrity. It's the foundation of trust and fairness in education. When we talk about citing and acknowledging AI, we're really talking about upholding these values. And you can see the values there on screen, and they have been, a link has been shared in the chat there too. So we'll just have a brief look at these values. So if we look at honesty, it's about being transparent about where your ideas come from, including when AI has helped. If we look at respect, it's about giving credit when you use someone else's ideas, even if that someone isn't AI trained on human knowledge, right? Responsibility. It's about taking ownership of your work and the choices that you make in using AI or not using AI. Fairness, it's ensuring a level playing field for everyone by following the rules, whether that's your fellow students or even your teaching staff or academic integrity staff. Following the rules is all about fairness. You've got trust. You build trust by, in this context, build trust by using AI appropriately and following the guidelines, because AI can be checked, but appropriate use really helps build that trust. And a bit of courage in standing up for what's right, especially when it's easier not to. AI is very accessible to us all, but sometimes it's just really not the right thing to be doing, and it takes courage to stand up and say, no, this isn't appropriate for me to be using this. So these values, they guide how we can use AI ethically in our studies. And they're also why citation and acknowledgement matter. It's not just a technical requirement, but it's a reflection of your integrity as a student as well. Okay, so we've applied this to AI use in the example here, but when using any external sources in academic work, whether it's a book, an article, a website, or yes, and a generative AI tool, it's important to understand the difference between acknowledgement and citation. So acknowledgement is a written declaration that states which tools, services, or individuals have contributed to your work, but are not directly cited in the work. This might include AI tools, a peer reviewer, or a collaborator. It's really about giving credit where it's due and transparency in that. Now, citation appears within the body of your work. It's a brief mention which shows where a specific idea, a quote, or data came from. For example, you might see in brackets Smith 2022 and so on. That's what we talk about, the difference between acknowledging and citing. So again, we're linking this to AI as much as possible, but these principles also apply to non-AI sources too. But what does an AI acknowledgement actually show? So first off, it shows that you've used AI tools in line with your assessment or assignments guidelines. And that's important because using AI outside of those boundaries could be considered misconduct. Secondly, it shows transparency, a clear distinction between what you have learned and contributed and where AI has supported you. It's not about hiding AI use. It's about being open and honest about how you've engaged with these tools. So acknowledging AI helps your educators understand your learning process and ensures that your work is evaluated fairly as well. So again, we're just going to link back. We covered a bit of these in an earlier slide, but we're just going to look at some common ways that students use AI that typically require acknowledgement. So these are situations where AI has supported your thinking or your process, but you're not directly quoting or reproducing AI's output. So if we look at something like topic exploration, if AI helped you understand or refine your topic, that is definitely worth acknowledging. Source analysis. If AI helped you interpret or compare sources, even if you didn't end up quoting them, you should acknowledge that support. Understanding complex concepts, very popular use. If AI helped explain something to you, that's part of your learning journey and it should be acknowledged too. Brainstorming. If AI helped generate ideas that shaped your work, even indirectly, it's an acknowledgement moment. It's helped your process. Structure. If AI helped organize your thoughts or outline your work, then that's support that's worth noting as well, and probably a really valid use case too. And lastly, just clarifying your arguments. If AI helped you refine or strengthen your reasoning, that is another case for acknowledgement. So these uses don't usually involve citing AI because you're not including its exact words or outputs, the AI's exact words or outputs, but you are benefiting from its assistance. So acknowledging that support is all part of being transparent and academically honest as well. So how do you actually write an AI acknowledgement? This format that we show on screen helps you be transparent about your use of AI tools. There isn't a one way to do it for every situation. So what we've tried to give you here is what your typical standard acknowledgement of AI would be. Essentially on this screen, we'll show you an example on the next slide. It's about acknowledging the use of what AI tool that you use with a link. Then you describe how the AI was used, and then also include a list of prompts that we used. So we'll actually have a look and see how this works in practice. So here's a complete example of an AI acknowledgement. This example shows how to be specific about the tool, the purpose, and the prompts. And we'll take a closer look at each part of the acknowledgement format to make sure it's clear for you. So first off, we have the AI system with the link at the top. You be specific. You include the name of the tool, like whether it's ChatGPT, Grammarly, Copilot, and a link to the platform. So this just really helps clarify what technology was used. Then you briefly describe how the AI was used. Describe the purpose. Did it help you brainstorm, structure your ideas, clarify your arguments? It shows transparency in your learning process, but also makes your intentions of using AI clearer. So what was your intention to do here? And that helps with your teaching staff understanding your motivations behind using it. And then lastly is the prompts used. So list the actual questions or instructions you gave the AI. And this helps your assessor understand the kind of input you provided and how it helps shape the output. Including these details helps demonstrate that you've used AI ethically and responsibly. And it also supports academic integrity by showing how AI contributed to your work without overstating or hiding its role. Now, if you're ever unsure how to write your acknowledgement, you can refer to our AI guide, which is linked on this slide in the QR code there, or there's a link in the chat too. And there's some more examples and guidance there. But again, I just stress that you should contact your course coordinator first to get the specific instructions for your assignments. They might have unique instructions about the placement of an acknowledgement, where they would like to see an acknowledgement placed. And they may even have different requirements to what we're showing you here. So like anything, it's very good to get clarity from your course coordinator with anything AI related first. So we're just trying to show you some general good practice that we've seen in the absence of a real authoritative one way to do it. Okay, so far we've talked about acknowledging AI when it supports your process, but when do you need to cite AI? Now, the rule is quite simple. If you quote, paraphrase, or summarize content generated by an AI tool, then you'd need to cite it. And that's just like you would with any other source, not just AI. So this applies whether AI gave you a definition, an explanation, or a piece of writing that you have included in your assignment. So citation is about giving credit for the actual content that is used, not just the support behind the scenes. So I hope that's clear. Acknowledgement's more about the support behind the scenes, things that contributed to the process. Citation is where you've actually used like another academic source or another source of information and included it in your own work. Um, So why referencing is a key part of academic practice. And basically you need to reference when you want to give credit to the author or the creator of a source, or you want to allow others to verify and locate the sources that you've used. It's almost they can follow your trail of how you got to where you did. Now, again, this applies to all kinds of information sources, books, articles, website, and yep, AI generated content when it is quoted, paraphrased, or summarized. Again, if you're unsure how to reference correctly, check the library's referencing guide. We have a QR code on the slide, and there's a few examples, and there's style-specific instructions there. So that should be in the chat for you as well too. So referencing generative AI is a little bit different from referencing traditional sources like books, journals, or articles. So the process is a bit the same, but how you do it is just a little bit different. And it's really because generative AI tools like ChatGPT or whatever your preferred one is, they don't meet some of the usual criteria for academic referencing. And what do we mean by that? Now, if you look on screen, we have no specific author. So AI outputs aren't written by a named person. They're generated by a system trained on a wide range of data. So there's no specific author, right? It's not able to be reproduced. If you enter the same prompt twice on the same tool, you might get different answers. So it makes it hard to verify exactly what was said or produced. So even if you do share your prompts and things like that, it's hard to actually reproduce that for someone. And also, because that can't be reproduced, it can't be recovered. So unlike a published article, you can't go back and find the exact AI response unless you saved it. So these differences mean that referencing AI requires a bit more context, like the date that you used, the prompts you entered, and the platform that you used. And that's why we recommend using both citation and acknowledgement when AI has contributed to your work. So there is different styles, there is different rules of referencing. So there are many different referencing styles used across different courses. Some of these ones that you might hear of, you don't need to know them all, but APA, MLA, Chicago, Harvard, you might hear some of these referencing styles come out, but each style has its own rules for how to cite AI generated content, and they don't all treat AI the same way. So to make sure that you're referencing correctly, check the style guide or use the library's referencing guide. So again, you can follow the QR code or the link in the chat, which will take you to our citing and acknowledging generative AI section of our AI guide. And it has examples and formats for each style to help with format, so you can format your citations properly. We will show a couple of examples today, but we're not going to get into them all because there's so many. And so we might not be able to specifically help your unique situation, but we can point you into the right direction for where the resources live. And if you do have any further questions from that, you can use the Ask Library feature. So in higher education, it's best practice for a university to select a default referencing style. Now, the default referencing style for University of Adelaide is Harvard U of A, which we've shown on screen there. So in the Harvard style used at University of Adelaide, AI generated content is treated as personal communication, as it is often non-recoverable for the reader, as we explained a little bit earlier. So that means that you use an in-text citation only. You don't include it in your reference list because readers can't access or retrieve that output anyway. And the format and example can be found on screen. So, for example, you'll see the example at the bottom there, OpenAI's ChatGPT, personal communication 25. So that's if you are citing AI content that's within your assignment, that's how it would look. Depending, of course, that's only if you've used ChatGPT in this instance. You could use other tools like Claude and so on, but it's the company name, the tool name, and personal communications and the date. That's if you're using Harvard U of A referencing style. So this format helps show when and how you used AI while aligning with Harvard's rules for non-recoverable sources. And if you do need more examples, you can again find them in the library's referencing guide on the QR code on the slides or the links shared in the chat. So for Adelaide University, as you know, we're getting very close to that. APA will become the default referencing style. So remember I mentioned that universities have a default style. We'll be switching to APA, which is currently in use at Uni SA. So people on that side might be a bit more familiar. So as generative AI becomes more common in academic work, the referencing styles are starting to update their guidance to reflect this. So in fact, during the development of this webinar, APA 7th released new advice on how to cite AI-generated content. So that was a bit of a shock for us to have to deal with here, but we expect some other styles to follow with updates in the future. So you can normally see if one goes, the rest will start following. It's a bit of an acknowledgement about how generative AI is impacting on academic work. So APA's approach is a bit different from Harvard's. You need to include both an in-text citation and a reference list entry. So they recommend combining it with an acknowledgement as well of how AI was used too. So a really comprehensive overview of how AI has impacted on whatever the assignment or assessment that you're using. So it reflects APA's emphasis on transparency and reproducibility, even though AI outputs aren't always recoverable in the traditional sense. But you can find out more about this on APA's blog post via the QR code on the slide or the link that has been shared in the chat. It's quite long, so set yourself in for it, but you'll see, and it will get you an idea of, it will explain in more detail than I am in this webinar today about how these things are being impacted. So how to cite using APA 7th. So this is an example of citing an AI tool generally. This is the format and example for that. So the structure here looks similar to the Harvard U of A, but there's a key difference that APA requires that reference list entry, not just the in-text citation. So it makes the use of AI more transparent and then aligns with APA's software citation format, which is the format that they use. So while Harvard U of A only uses in-text citation only, APA includes both in-text and reference list entries, even for general use. And you have some links shared in the chat there too. Now, this is a bit of a new one here. This is probably the biggest new thing that's come up with APA's new advice is that so APA 7th edition is currently the only major referencing style that provides specific guidance for citing a shared AI chat thread. And here's how you do it. So the approach is new and the approach is new and unique to APA. And it allows you to provide a direct link to the exact conversation, making your use of AI transparent and verifiable. Now, like I said before, I think other referencing styles will update their guidance in future, but for now, it feels like APA are leading the way in this format. So I'll share an example in the chat of what's on screen. So I've actually shared, you'll see that there's a chat thread there, which is University Study Topics Australia. Now, I've shared that with you. If you follow that link, you'll see a shared ChatGPT thread, and this is what the reader will see. So a lot of AI tools have the feature that you can share a chat with other people. It often requires a login though. But it's just something to be aware of that even if you're citing an AI chat, that you may eventually be asked to share the actual thread itself. So I'll let you have a little bit of a moment just to have a look at that so you can see what it is. Kept it a very broad one. You know, you could go really detailed with your threads, but I'd probably just recommend trying to have a thread which just links to the thing that you're trying to cite specifically, so you don't have this long thread that includes things that aren't relevant to the citation that you're linking into. Okay, so like I said, we can't cover all referencing styles today. So we focused on the two most common ones in Harvard U of A and APA 7th. However, the library does provide clear guidance on how to cite generative AI tools in all of the major referencing styles that we support. You can find this information in the AI How Do I guide, which includes a dedicated section on citing and acknowledging generative AI. So you can access that quickly on the link that has just been shared in the chat, or you can use the QR code to get there. But that's kind of your one-stop shop, which you can use the referencing styles, but then also have the acknowledgement examples in there too. Now, just one last thing we just wanted to cover as well is because it seems to come up a lot is can I use AI tools to generate or provide references? And while AI tools can be helpful for brainstorming and drafting, it's not recommended to rely on them for generating references because AI generated citations they're often inaccurate, incomplete, or entirely fabricated, and it can undermine the credibility of your work. So instead, we strongly encourage using trusted academic tools like library search and our academic databases. And by using these resources, you can ensure that your references are accurate, verifiable, and aligned with academic standards. Um, and you can access these tools through the library's website as well to find high quality sources and build your reference lists with confidence through that. You can maybe use AI alongside it to help you build a search strategy or something like that, which you would then acknowledge. But when it comes to getting your citations, you should go directly to the primary source and not rely on what AI is telling you. And it's good practice for your research skills as well, particularly while you're learning here at our university too. So again, we just want to be cautious with reference sources in AI's output. So if you're using AI generated content in academic work, it's essential to verify any reference sources, especially journal articles, which just gets wrong. And why? Well, we can tell you a little bit why. So you need to be careful because AI tools will mention academic sources that just, like I said before, they just don't exist. They're misquoted or misrepresented. Um, and look, it is really on you to locate, verify, and reference these sources properly, just as you would with any other academic material. Um, really about being transparent and giving credit where it's due. So I guess what would I actually do then if I do get some academic sources in my output? I would actually search and locate it myself. I would use library search to find the actual article or source and don't trust that AI has it right. It might point you in the right direction, AI, but you want to verify it yourself. And you might find if it's leading you astray too much, you might not use it in the end. But it's really you need to show that you can not only source and locate information, but then also interpret it and verify that it is correct. So after searching and locating, read it and verify. Ensure the source is accurate, relevant, and credible. And do that yourself, and you'll start to develop a relationship with AI when you can see where it is helpful, where it isn't helpful, and whether it's worth including it in a discovery process or not. And then lastly is just once you've verified it, reference it correctly. So cite it using your institution's academic or referencing guidelines. So what I showed before, the library's overview of how you can cite and reference normal sources. So again, if you need help with referencing, we've linked our reference page there too, and it's also shared in the chat. So yeah, they give you everything you need to do the traditional methods there. I recommend that you do understand how to do that. It's really important, and it's something that, regardless of outside of your studies, that the ability to locate, read, and verify trustworthy information in your professional career will continue as well. So I guess to support academic work, especially when verifying AI-generated sources, we recommend exploring our Library Essentials online courses. So they're self-paced modules which are designed to help you navigate our library systems. So learn how to use library search and other tools to locate books, journal articles, and all of our academic databases. It also gets into how to evaluate credible sources, so understand how to assess the quality, reliability, and relevance of sources of information, which is essential when you have to, particularly when you're using AI and it's presenting you with these realistic looking references or citations, you need to go and evaluate those sources yourself still. And yeah, I guess you by doing this, it will help you maintain your academic integrity as well. So you gain some confidence in referencing correctly, and you can gain that confidence in avoiding misinformation or fabricated sources as well. So I just really recommend those two. Okay, so that's it. It's like we've just made a nice, short, easy webinar for you to follow. I know it can be a bit overwhelming for to get this right. But I just recommend that as long as you're transparent about your process and you're working within the course guidelines that your course coordinator has given you within the AI acceptable levels of AI use, and you're transparent about that with your intentions, I think you're okay. But I think you run into issues where you're trying to hide it. That's where it can become more of an issue for you too. So look, we're going to open it up for questions today, but look, I just want to note that we likely can't help you with your own specific acknowledging or citing requirements here, but we can assist with your approach. So I'd recommend using the resources that we've shared with you today. Go through there. If you can't get your question answered that way, there is an Ask Library function on our website. So if you do need to escalate anything beyond what you can't get, you can use that function too, and we will provide a support for you too. Great. I'd love to get some feedback too if you'd like. Please use the QR code there to provide us any feedback on this session. Just try to keep it a short one today. So that's pretty much all we have covered without any questions. We'll just get all the links out, got them. Beyond that, that's us. So we'll leave it there. Thanks for joining, everyone.